Hello, Steve Lindsley. This is my second video on how I made this tall vase. As I said in the first video, this is jatoba and some curly maple with some bloodwood and a little walnut ring at the top. So it actually turned out pretty nice. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I put all the rings on the lathe, turned it, cleaned out the inside, and also at the end I'll show you how I wrapped this this top piece with this it's 5mm hemp rope. So I think that kind of gives it a nice accent. So I'll show you how I did that at the end of this video. So stay tuned and I'll show you how I turned my tall vase. Here's where we left off in the first video. What I'm going to do is take the bottom ring, or ring number 1 I call it, and put it on the lathe. Now this, I need to make it so that I can get it on the chuck, and my chuck has dovetail jaws. So what I'm going to do is mark out the width that I need for the jaws, and then take a square nose scraper and only go down 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to use a skew to give it a little bit of a dovetail shape so I can get it onto the chuck. I still have the piece in the large jaws, but I've flipped it over, and so this would be the inside of the bottom ring. What I'm going to do is hollow out an area for the floating disc, and I'm going to put in it. The disc is a piece of 1/4 inch curly maple. So I use in a scraper. I have the scraper ground so that I ground a cutting edge on the side of the scraper, and that is 90 degrees to the end of the scraper. So it works pretty well when you're trying to make a corner on the inside of on a cut like this. So it works out pretty well. All right, I have the floating bottom glued into the to the piece there. I only glued with the grain on the ends, and so that it can expand and contract if it wants to or needs to. I got the first ring in the chuck in expansion mode. The second ring I'm going to put on is actually this is jatoba, and this is a piece of mesquite, which I thought maybe would give a little contrast, although they're kind of the same color. So this one's a 1/4 inch thick, this is a half, so I put those together and it should make a 3/4 inch piece. Truthfully, I had to do over again. I probably would just made this piece 3/4 of an inch. It would have been a lot easier to do what I did with the jaws and this piece. But be it as it may. So now we're going to glue this piece on. What I got to make sure is I don't put any glue too close to here, otherwise it'll keep that from expanding and contracting. The glue I'm going to use is this Thick and Quick. I've used it before. It dries fast, that's why I like it, but it's like within like 15 minutes or so you can actually work with the piece. I get more questions than anything on this this live center that I put my chuck on. I get a lot of questions about that. It goes into Morris taper on the tailstock. I bought this one from Penn State. Here's hopefully you can see the box there if I got it in the camera. That's the part number, I think, LTCA18, and it's called a live tailstock chuck adapter. So if you're looking for one, I know they make them at Woodcraft sells them, as well as Penn State, and probably others as well. So anyway, it works really slick. You put the thing in the tailstock and your chuck spins around very freely there. So so that works out pretty well. Probably just changed the exposure on my thing when I put that in there, so I need to make a little bit of adjustment here. There we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is put some glue on, actually on this one. Normally I would put it on this piece, but I'm going to put it on this one this time just so that I know where it goes and I don't get it too close to this groove where that floating bottom is. So I'll just put some glue on a piece of paper and we'll just spread it around on here to glue it on. Like I say, the process for putting the rings on will pretty much all be the same, so I'll probably not show every one since there's 23 rings in this piece. So we'll show this one. All the rest of them will go on the same way. We'll get a few of them on and then we'll do a little turning on it. This is not going to be something I can do a lot of turning on the inside because it's so tall and narrow. So, all right, so we don't have any glue close to that bottom, floating bottom. So I have the center marked on one of these pieces here someplace. What did I do with it? There it is. All right, so let's push this up. Tail stuck down and tighten it up. Give it a little twist to get it glue spread out well. And put a little pressure on it. Normally that would be enough, and it probably is, but I think on this one I'm going to stick a few clamps on it to make sure we're getting a good connection there on that one. Probably won't put clamps on every one of them, but on this particular one I think I will. All right, there we go. All right, well that's pretty much glued up then. Like I said, I use this revolving tail stock with my chuck on it and these jaws to put the rest of the rings on as they go along, and we'll just build this up and get a few rings on, and then we'll do a little turning on it. All right, we got the first 4 or 5 rings glued on all the way up through the piece of maple. What I've got is a large cone center, which I got that cone center from Curt Theobald, and I hope I didn't mispronounce his name. I will put a link in the comments. So what I'm going to do here is just kind of knock off these edges and get it to a very, I mean very rough shape. We'll work on the inside of these pieces I have on glued up here so far. I'm going to be using a 3/8" bowl gouge and a carbide cutting tool, basically to get these corners knocked off the inside and get the piece round. I'm not at this point trying to get it to its final thickness, which is going to be 3/8 of an inch. So we're just trying to knock off the high spots and get it so that it's a little easier to work with. I've glued on 2 more rings. I glued on the other 1/4 inch bloodwood ring and another Jatoba ring. And the goal in this segment is to get the outside diameter down to what it is on the plan. So I'm just kind of knocking off the edges of that Jatoba ring, and then I'll use a parting tool on my calipers to set some diameters. I'll use a 3/8" bowl gouge and a negative rake scraper to get this part of the vessel to rough shape. I'm not going to spend a lot of time finishing the inside. What I did was brush on about 3 coats of shellac, and that's what I'm going to call is good for the inside of this piece. I'm going to work on the inside of these, those pieces that you just saw me glue on there. This piece is going to get pretty far out over from the headstock, so I made a steady rest to hold the pieces as I'm turning the inside of it. It actually worked pretty well. There's a lot of plans on the internet and different ways of making them, but it's just a couple of 3 skateboard or a rollerblade wheels with a plywood frame, so it worked out pretty well. Well, I found a 1 3/4 inch drill bit did a nice job of cleaning up the inside of these next few rings, so that's what I used, and it actually worked out pretty well. The last of the rings are glued on and we're ready to clean these up. The wheels on the steady rest were in the way, so I switched them around, so it's still being used, but it's the wheels are just in the other side so you can't see them. Alright, I want to apologize for the next few clips. They're actually pretty bad. It was a real bright day and I didn't have the camera set right, and it's kind of washed out. Plus the leg of the tripod was actually touching the lathe, so every time I got a little bit of vibration, the thing would shake, so it really didn't work out all that well. But it's just a matter of using a bowl gouge and the carbide cutter to get these inside this cleaned up into the 3/8 thickness that I've turned the rest of the vessel. Alright, I've got the all the pieces on. I got it rough shape. This is the fun part when I'm going to clean everything up and get it all the final shape. Because on this segmented turning you're cutting side grain, it cuts real easy with a scraper, so I'm just using a round nose scraper. I find that that's a good tool to get it to the close to the final shape, and then I'll come back in a later clip and I'll use the negative rake scraper to finish it up and get everything all smoothed out. I'm going to spend a minute removing some material where I'm going to wrap the rope. So I'm just using my parting tool in a caliper set to the diameter that I want, and then I'll just remove the material in between the two, and that part will be ready to sand and have the rope wrapped around it. What I want to do next is wrap some of this rope around the piece here and give it kind of a little decorative feature. This is 5mm hemp rope that I bought online. We're not going to need the lathe is not even turned on. I just have it back into the lathe just to hold it. I put on, if you can see this, I put on 10 coats of this Armor Seal by General Finishes. So it's got a nice smooth finish on it, very durable. So that came out pretty nice. So the idea is to wrap this rope around it so that we can finish this piece up. Now what I've done is I've taken the last couple of inches here. I've taken a hammer and I just kind of smashed it down so that it is a little flatter than it would be otherwise. So the idea is that we'll go over that piece, and then the rope will actually hold it in there. So it's kind of a pain because you got to keep pulling the rope through, but once we get a couple of wraps on that, we can push it up here and we'll get it tightened up. There we go. So we'll do one more and then cut off the excess there on that piece. Pull it up tight. There we got 3 wraps around that, and it's nice and tight. We'll hold that in there, so I'm just going to cut that piece off. Maybe without cutting the other one. There we go. Come on. There we go. So now, just keep wrapping around there till we get to the bottom, and then we'll have to deal with that. Want to keep it pretty tight as we're putting it on there. All right. I got a little piece of... The tricky part's finishing up this end, and I got a little piece of rope here that I'm going to use for that. Put it here so it stays where it's supposed to. So the idea is to lay this piece of rope. I'm going to do about 3 turns. I'm going to lay this smaller piece of rope here with a loop on it, and we're going to wrap around that. You can see here, hopefully. So we'll wrap around that loop like 3 times. We won't pull it real tight yet. And let's see where we're going to end. I might have the loop in the wrong spot. We're going to have to end over here, so see if I can slide that loop over. Nope. I'm going to have to take it back off here. I'll put that there. All right, we'll try this again. All right, that looks pretty good. What I got to do now is pull this through there, so I'm going to get rid of some of this excess rope. My X-Acto knife here. Cut it off without cutting myself. There we go. We don't need that piece, we'll put that there. So the idea now is to put this through that loop. If I can get it in there. And then pull it underneath of these other 2 pieces here. Let's lock the lathe back in. So pull that underneath there. Now we need to tighten all that up. There. So now we'll just cut this piece up and off and tidy it up a little bit. Cut that piece off, tidy these couple of pieces up, spread it out a little bit. Let's take a look. And there we go. Gives our piece a little visual interest and a little bit of different texture. So I think it looks pretty good. So that's how I wrap that piece with some 5mm hemp rope. All right, that's the end of the second video and how I made this segmented project. I think it came out pretty nice. I really like the shape. I like the color. This is Jatoba. I think that's a nice color. The curly maple looks nice, and the rope certainly adds a little bit of interest to it. At least I think it does. So anyway, it was a great project. It'll look good on my in my office, and I'll sit there and look at it every day. So thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please go ahead and click that subscribe button, and you'll get notified of any future videos that I post. Hopefully, if you're interested in wood turning or woodworking in general, or you're finding some interest in my videos, I thank everybody that's watched them. I appreciate any comments, so if you have some, please go ahead and leave them down below, and I'll respond to them as quickly as I can. So thanks for watching, and everybody have a great day out there.